and welcome to Legacy Keepers podcast. It's Kare and Anita here, and today we have a very special guest. I'm so excited to hear more about this because, I don't know, Sue, if you've heard of The Book of Two Ways by Jodi Picoult. Have you heard of that book?
Yes, have not read it, but I have heard of it. Yes.
Okay, so that book is about what in the book they refer to it as a death doula of a woman who's a death doula, and she's also an archaeologist, and it's just a fiction book, but it made me understand or even realize that there was such a thing as an end of life doula, and I was fascinated by it. So we're so excited. I'm just going to introduce our guest now. Her name is Sue Phillips, and she is a critical illness end of life doula based in Ontario. She's an active member of the Communications and Media Committee for the End of Life Doula Association of Canada. In addition to supporting individual clients, Sue is passionate about raising awareness of the benefits of end of life doula care. She aims to offer fresh perspective on navigating life limiting illness and death and is committed to exploring innovative approaches to end of life support. And, Sue gave us a quote, and I love this quote. Her belief is the end of life deserves as much beauty, care, and respect as the beginning, which is beautiful. So welcome, Sue.
Thank you so much, Anita and Care. I'm really thrilled that you contacted us and happy to be here on behalf of the association and on behalf of the work that I do personally. So thanks so much. The more information we can share with
Mhm.
your followers, the better. We just need to keep getting the information out there.
Right. Well, thank you for being here. So, can you maybe explain exactly what is an end of life doula and what do they do? Like, what is
I
their
sure
role?
can. So, if you think about, many years ago, say before even the funeral industry became what it is today,
Okay.
I mean, we in community cared for our loved ones in our homes. We held funerals in our homes. Community helped each other look after our sick and dying. And so, if you look at it that way, we were all doulas in community back then. However, an end of life doula, our primary goal is non-medical support, and that can mean emotional, practical support, and not only for someone who is ill and maybe close to death, but also for their loved ones, their personal circle of care.
Right.
So I give you an example of some of the supports that we provide, but we're there to educate, empower, and advocate.
Mhm.
So we want to help you understand, as someone who might be a negotiator or navigating an illness, what your options are in Canada and what to think about and to think beyond. I've created a will, so I've got everything I need. I know where I'm going to be buried or what's going to happen.
The
So we
practical
do,
things.
yeah, exactly. And we do try to help people focus as well on the emotional part of it. But we do help with advanced care planning, advocacy for the best possible healthcare, experience,
Mhm.
education and compassion on the complexities of what you're dealing with when you are dealing with illness and approaching death. Um, getting your health care in place, your comfort plan in place. So those are just a few of the things, working with the family within their comfort level. So
Okay.
maybe filling a gap where a caregiver needs a break. So maybe I'm going to come in and give respite. I'm going to come and companion, sit with your loved one so you can have a break, those kinds of things. So there's a wide variety of supports. Not all end of life doulas do all things. They may focus on, say, advanced care planning because that can be a challenging task in itself. Like really sitting down and talking with people about their death plan, their death journey,
Mhm.
and what that means for them emotionally and practically. So, it can be a challenge. So some doulas might focus only on helping people create their advanced care plan. So that just gives you a little bit of a rough idea. People do. It's important to understand that it's non-medical. So
Right. So even if you're giving respite care, it's more as a companion.
exactly, yeah, yeah.
Right. And so what made you be interested in this line of work? Did you have like a personal experience with someone or what was it?
Well, it's a bit of a cliche. I always say it when people ask me, and I appreciate being asked. I wasn't looking for it, it found me.
Mm.
And I now am able to kind of link it back to a personal experience that happened many, many years ago when my aunt died. And she was only 47 when she died. Um, and I really believe that part of what has brought me here is her and the spirit of her and how she managed her own death journey and her bravery and dignity throughout the experience. But to be honest, just one day I had been retired from a totally unrelated job. I worked for the public school board as a support staff. After 30 years, I retired. I was retired for 3 years and just having fun and traveling. And I came upon a course in end of life doula work. I called a friend of mine who was an executive director of a hospice at the time and asked her opinion, did some research on the role, and jumped right in. It just sparked something for me, and I haven't looked back. It's very heart centered work, and along with that, I did some volunteering at a hospice as a visiting volunteer. Um, but I did start right at the beginning of COVID, which came with its
Oh,
own
okay.
challenges, as you can
I'm
imagine.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm familiar with that concept of something finding you. I've had that happen a few times in my different careers over the years as well.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm curious about kind of the spiritual aspect of it. I know, like, do you work with different people's belief systems as far as like if you think of, say, First Nations people and how they handle someone who's about to pass away or different groups, like how do you navigate that?
Yes. Great question. It's about, I'm learning from you. So
Okay.
what are your needs from a spiritual perspective? And allow me to participate in that and find what you need for the journey. So I may not know your culture or your faith, but I'm not there in judgment, nor am I there to say yes, I know it all. I'm there to say just tell me what you need, and I'm going to make sure you have it. An
Mhm.
example would be I had a client who was of Chinese ancestry, and her some of her family had come from China. She was going to be going through a medically assisted death, and it was difficult for some of them, but they supported her. And, I said to her, what can I get you? I looked, I did some research. What are common funeral practices, rituals, things like that. Presented some to her, asked if any of those were of interest or need, and could I, get her anything she needed. And so I worked with the family, and yeah, you have to just go for it and expect to learn. Always expect to learn from others. This is
Oh,
a collaborative situation. You're walking side by side, right? Not leading anybody on their journey. Not pushing anyone into any particular situation. And Anita, if I could just step back for a moment, I just
sure.
realized the one thing I didn't touch on, which is very important, especially for the work that you and Care do, is legacy. And that is a
Mhm.
big part of what a doula can do with a client as well. Help with what do you want your legacy to be and how can I help you make it happen? Whether it's exactly what you do in your business, It can be writing letters, it can be creating musical playlists. I mean, of course, there's a variety of ways of sharing our legacy.
Yes.
And sometimes we have a difficult time um, focusing on what we might want our legacy to be, because we think legacy is a monetary thing.
Yeah.
And
Can be.
when we're, kind of challenged to reflect and say what are the important things, or values or beliefs, or pieces of art, whatever it is that you would like to leave for your loved ones, it can be challenging for people to dig in and start looking at that. So that is something that I really enjoy doing with people. I also do storytelling sessions and, help people sit in community telling their stories. So I just wanted to step back to that because,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Thank you for that. I'm sure, and I guess it also depends on the age of the person when they're dying too, because if they have young children that they want to leave messages for as they're growing up, or,
yeah,
if they're older. But yeah, I can only imagine how many interesting things you've had to learn or that you've had the opportunity to learn about through all these different people, because I'm guessing your role is not to judge or be try and convince them of anything. You just present kind of some of the more fact type things like government forms and that kind of stuff. But apart from that, I'm sure it's all about you learning from them.
yeah. And it's about creating conversation. It's about
Okay.
creating that safe space for people to really talk about what they're experiencing. And sometimes we hold back because we're afraid of making our families uncomfortable, or
Mhm.
expecting too much from people. We can be, it can be very difficult for us to really, focus on, we are the heroes here. We are the ones going on the journey, on this walk. And what do we need? What do I need? Not we. So it can be very difficult for people. People worry about their children. If they're an older adult, they worry about even their adult children.
Of course.
So they worry.
Karen and I have, let's see, 12 adult children between us.
Yeah,
And the parenting doesn't stop just because they become an adult.
that's right. So I'll give you an example of a woman who was dying, and she was not even 60 years old yet, just shy of 60. And she wanted to have a medically assisted death, and she also wanted to die at home. But she was afraid of one of her adult children, early 20s, still lived at home. And so she felt that if she did that, she would be creating a bad home experience.
Hmm.
She just felt that it was,
Association. Yeah.
yes. And so she asked me to facilitate a conversation circle with her family, her husband and her two children. And, I came to the table with facts, as you say, providing some of the facts of what could happen to her physically as she got closer to her death. But also, we talked about wishes and values. And it was one of the most profound experiences of my time doing this work, because both of her children said, "We absolutely want you to do exactly what you want to do."
Oh, nice.
And they gave her that permission to step back and say, "I want to die at home." And she did not, in the end, have a medically assisted death. She died very quickly, but she did die at home. Her children were with her. They, in fact, wrapped her in a blanket that was very special to her. So, those rituals and ceremonies are very, very important to people. We don't think they are. We tend to want to be strong. We think being strong means not saying, "I would really like this for my own comfort." So I really love that part of my job, which is to help people explore what they need, not what they think others want from them.
Right. I mean, couple things came to my mind while you were saying all of that. A couple years ago, I attended a celebration of life of someone who also had died with medical assistance. He had a terminal cancer, and his wish was that he didn't want his family to remember him if he died naturally in so much pain and so altered and grumpy and
Yeah.
whatever that pain will cause. So he chose to do the medically assisted. But they recorded, like he basically recorded his own eulogy that was then played on video at the celebration. And his wife also recorded it with him there, what she would say. And so she didn't actually get up at the celebration and give her
Yeah. Yes.
eulogy. She had it recorded, and I mean, everybody was in tears. It was so
Yeah.
beautiful. So you must, like, how do you handle the emotional part of your job? Because I'm sure you have days that are fun and uplifting, and other days where even if it's beautiful, it's still emotionally draining. And how do you handle that, bringing that home to your own personal life?
Yeah, I think it's really important to, self-care and whatever that means to
Mm,
us, right? So, prior to going to a client, I say a silent little, please let me bring peace and comfort to this person today. It's a little bit of a ritual. And when it's over, I thank myself,
mhm.
for being present for that person. And I also thank that person, quietly thanking that person for the gift of allowing me to be there.
Beautiful.
And also, I honestly, I love naps, and and they do a lot for me, and I
Like a
spend
reset in the middle of the day, right?
exactly. And, I have a wonderful partner. We spend a lot of time together. I don't work with very many clients at any one time. I'm a
Okay.
writer, so I do like to work with clients. I like to write. Um, I work with my association as a committee member, so it's varied, and I'm very careful how many people I would
Mhm.
work with because I do think, we have to be very mindful of that emotional impact.
Sure.
Um, yeah, and I love to travel, so and I have a great group of friends. I am a little bit of I will get on my soapbox about, the doula work and end of
Mhm.
life. And I love your story about this person who, had his own eulogy. In fact, on my website, I have a piece that I wrote on my blog about writing our own obituary.
Right.
So we are really exploring innovative ways and new ways of approaching this very human experience that no one is getting out of.
No, we're all going to go through it one day, right?
All gonna go. And as sad as it can be so beautiful, like you say.
Mhm.
And tears are good. Water is healing.
Yeah,
And when
beautiful.
you're in community and people are sharing that space and those moments, it can heal people in so many ways, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, um, what are some common threads that you're hearing from, I guess you refer them as your clients? Is it your
Yeah.
clients?
Yeah.
From your clients about maybe joys or regrets? Sometimes you read these articles about nurses who say they hear over and over that the common regret, but what kind of things are you hearing from your clients?
It's exactly what we see all the time. I wish I had worked less. I
Mm,
wish I had spent more time with family. I wish I had had more adventures.
yeah.
Or maybe, taken more risk of the things that maybe that I wanted to do. And, there's also, you dig a little deeper and it could be, I wish I had asked for forgiveness about
Oh,
something.
okay. Yeah.
I wish I had forgiven someone for something. Those are very important. And just expressing our love and care for people, right? Sometimes, again, we're very stoic and practical. And, again, that depends on our cultural background and, of course, our environment growing up, if we were encouraged to express ourselves. And maybe we weren't, right? So then it becomes very difficult. So,
Right. Okay. So, um, do you find that there's a desire expressed for them to share their stories? I know you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. where you found that you do facilitate that. But I know, so one of the things that spurred me on to start this company, Daisy Chain Legacy Publishing with Care, is a friend of mine who lost three parents. So, like a mother, father, and stepfather, I think it was, in a short period of time. I think it was over 2 years. And unfortunately, I think two of them had some form of dementia or Alzheimer's. And so she didn't have that opportunity at the end to ask them um, about their stories that she could record it or anything because their mind was already, unfortunately, going. And she said, as the living relative, her biggest regret was that she hadn't gotten their stories before they were unable to share them anymore because then that kind of dies with them, right? So
Yes. Yeah. I really wish more people were willing to, to reflect on their legacy
yes,
and document it. And that is something, as we said earlier, that I do always talk about when I first meet a client. When I first meet somebody, I ask them if they have their legal documentation in place. I do not help with legal documentation, but I will encourage that.
yeah,
um, because the more we have in place, the more the more we improve our quality of the life we have left, right?
right,
The more we empower ourselves and those who are going to speak for us, if we can't speak for ourselves, then that eliminates some very difficult things when people are grieving, right? So if my son
yes,
is going to look after my stuff, I want to empower him and make sure he has everything he needs. Um,
hmm
but definitely legacy is right up there with, like, okay, do you have your plan in place? Let me help you get that in place. Now let's talk legacy. And and people do want to share their story. Once you get people, I'll give you a quick example of a man I was visiting through hospice work I was doing, not as a doula but as a volunteer. And I said, would you like to tell your life story? He said, oh, I haven't done anything. I've lived in the same city all my life. I haven't traveled. And once we started talking, it was incredible because then he talked about how much his first car was and, how much his first home was. And it just goes from there. And people, sometimes all you have to do is ask, who was your best friend in grade 5?
And then the floodgates open, right?
Exactly. So I cannot stress enough how
Yeah,
important I feel legacy is on a personal level for sure. And, people can start now. They don't have to be going through a crisis.
right.
And that's the same as the doula work. Doula support can start anytime because
Mm,
when you're not planning in a vulnerable state, you're planning what you really need and want.
right.
We really encourage people to consider before a crisis occurs, think about working with someone and getting everything in place. As far as legacy goes, start now and make
Yes.
changes, review things, even review your legal documents, review everything as you go along, right? Life changes. Um,
Finances, legal.
exactly.
There's like kind of probably three pillars of this, right? Your financial health, your, making sure everything's legal, and then also legacy and family and all
Yeah.
of that entailed,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. And don't be afraid to, what happened today in a year from now, maybe something completely different is happening.
Yes.
Document it. Don't be afraid. And don't be afraid to document. Sometimes we document the things that are most difficult for us and perhaps even most traumatizing.
Mm,
But we forget to document the joys,
right.
right?
And it's a common thing that we hear from people is that my life isn't interesting,
Yes.
and it's when you it's I kind of get people to think of it like this. So if you're meeting a new person that hasn't known you your whole life and they want to get to know you. So if you're dating or if you're just making new friends, I recently moved to a whole new area and so did Care. And so we're right now needing to make new friends who don't know us, right?
Right.
And then you start sharing some, oh, I used to own an adventure travel company and I travel and And they're like, wow. And but to me, that was just my normal life, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's sometimes good to encourage someone to talk as if someone doesn't know you.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then, like you say, your best friend in grade five, and it just opens the floodgates for that. But
Yeah.
interesting. So we're just going to wrap up here in a moment, Sue, but I'm wondering, you shared little stories along the way, which I love. Is there something that stands out in your mind, a story with a client that maybe encapsulates what you do or that it's just stuck with you for whatever reason that you'd like to share?
Well, I think a recent story that has become really interesting for people that people have really responded to. And again, this story is on my website, on my blog, but it's called Tuna the dog, is
Okay.
my pet client, Tuna. And I met a couple. The fella was dying with a brain with glioblastoma. And so I supported him over several months, him and his partner, through that process. And he died recently, but I think what was really interesting and really struck me, and is why I wrote the story, um, is that I watched Tuna experience the grief
The
of
dog? Tuna's
yes,
the dog?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we forget about our pets, our beloved pets. I'm not a pet owner. I can't have a pet due to allergies, but I do love dogs, and I love all kinds of pets. But we really have to pay attention to our pets and how they experience grief and what we can do for them. And so the writing that story and gathering the photos of Tuna with her human, was really special, and it really resonated with a lot of people. So
Mhm.
I'm currently doing research to talk with different people about their grief experiences and their care experiences, their death journeys, all of it. So I've spoken with a 98-year-old who keeps plugging along. I've spoken with a 4-year-old who lost her pet fish. So I'm really looking to explore people's experiences. Yeah, I really love talking
Interesting.
to people. Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting. I know whenever if I'm just scrolling through little videos on Facebook or whatever, whenever there's one where, it's showing the pet lying on the owner's grave or like, they say that pets know, even
Absolutely.
in seniors' homes, sometimes they bring in pets and the pet goes to the room of the one who's dying that day or,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're very intuitive about in a way that as humans we aren't, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's fascinating, very fascinating. I'm sure you could write volumes of books about all your experiences and
Well, I've been doing the work for just over 5 years now, so I have a long way to go. I expect that I'll be doing this for as long as I possibly can. I
Mhm.
love the work, and I love promoting the care that end of life doulas provide to to their communities in various ways. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I'm really happy to be doing it.
So if someone wants to hire an end of life doula, where do they reach out? How do they do that?
Well, I would love it if they did a Google search for the End of Life Doula Association of Canada. And
Okay.
we have approximately about 70 members, I believe, listed on our website across Canada. So they're listed by province.
Okay.
And, we have a little blurb on each person, where they are and, what their focus is. And yeah, that is definitely one way to explore. And we are growing. That definitely we are definitely growing and getting the word out there. So yeah, Google End of Life Doula, but definitely the End of Life Doula Association of Canada. I also belong to another organization, the Death Doula Ontario Network. So that website also provides doulas in the Ontario area, and
And we'll
and
make sure that we put the links to all these things in the
that's
show
great.
notes
Yeah,
for anyone who
yeah.
wants to just go
And
straight to the link.
the End of Life Doula Association of Canada, if I could just say, what we
Mhm.
are is a networking organization. So we are there to learn from each other. We have
Okay.
speakers come in, so we have a supportive network. We have all kinds of learning opportunities, and we have a newsletter that we put out. We have about, I think, over 6,000 people readership on our newsletter, so we're excited about that. And we're
Hmm.
just about to launch our updated website, so we're really excited about that happening. But those things can always take a little bit of time to make happen, but we are excited. Growing, we've grown quite a bit since we started in 2016, 2017. So, um,
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
we
thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you again so much, Sue, for sharing all of this with us today and our listeners. And again, it's Karen and I here, just reminding all of you to keep your legacy alive. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.